Welcome back to our next episode of Lifestyle Debunk here at Hippocrates Health Institute. I am joined by the world-renowned expert on nutrition and all things lifestyle, Clement. And we are here to talk to you about the toxic environment that you choose to consume. We're going to take you on a whole journey of consuming food, where it's stored in your body, what kind of nasty things are inside there just waiting for you, the animals that it's a part of, and really the whole cycle. So we're going to get right into it. Brian, give us a little bit of your insight from the start. The pesticides, the industry.
Well, this is an amazing subject. I mean, I want to give you a vivid picture so that nobody misunderstands what we're bringing to you today. Imagine if I went to my backyard and had pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, heavy metals, deadly chemicals, and plastic, and I said, let's go out and dine. Let's eat all of that. Well, you would consider me to be insane and easily be able to call the police and have me arrested. But you're doing this on a daily basis. And it's a lot worse than the little bit I may sprinkle on my yard. You're having bioamplification when the animals eat these things, and it accumulates, and now you have condensed forms, very high levels of these toxic, deadly, disease-causing, age-producing chemicals.
That's really good. So talking about, the storage, the things that are harbored within our bodies. So first of all, fat. So what is really the purpose of fat? Fat kind of has a bad rap to it. Yeah. As it relates to our bodies, there's a lot of low-fat things that are trending right now. But the importance of fat is that, it insulates our organs, it stores energy for us, and it protects our bodies. And so I think it's really important that, fat is a part of a healthy diet. We love avocados here. It's good, but there's things that can be stored in fat that are not so good for us. So fats help the body stockpile certain nutrients as well, like the fat-soluble vitamins, such as A, D, E, and K. But also, they store things such as pesticides and toxic residues that accumulate in the fat. Now, Brian, as it relates to items accumulating in the fat, why does this happen?
Well, why it happens, and then we're going to go back and talk about the difference between essential fatty acids and saturated animal fat. But why it happens is that when you have a lot of movement, blood circulatory activity, cells flushing through the system, you literally are carrying away these noxious poisons. But the more weight you have, personal human fat that you get most of the time from eating high sugar diets, that produces your own fat, saturated fat, or eating animals themselves. Now, let's preface. Animals mean eggs. They mean dairy food. They mean ice cream. They mean yogurt. They mean kefir. They mean fish. They mean chicken. They mean turkey. They mean red meat. They're all animal fats. And by the way, some of the early ones I mentioned have more fat than steak does. And we're going to speak a little bit later about antibiotic resistance. Guess what? Chickens give you more of that than even the horrible red meat that everyone knows about. So when you have no movement, no circulation, the perfect little nest that these heavy metals and deadly chemicals and plastics can settle in is that non-circulatory area of fat. Boy, did I have a lot of that stuff before I began this lifestyle.
So I'm going to read you a little bit of a study where they talk about this exactly. So this study from 2018 states that pesticides accumulate in the bodies with high fat content. The scientists concluded that the higher the place of an animal in the food chain, which we're at the top, by the way, the more toxins accumulate in its body. The study also points out that the long-living species accumulate more pesticides than the species that have shorter life cycles. Now, talking about species that live a long time, I mean, we're living pretty long these days, and so the longer that we live, the more chances we have of just harboring these things that are bad for us.
Well, it's true. It's just very basic math. If I'm here 10 years, I'm going to get 10 years of poison. If I'm here 20. If I'm here 80 years of poison. And this is why, as we get older, diseases that should have happened when we were younger, like cancer, become more prevalent. Mm-hmm. Why heart disease becomes more prevalent. Diabetes becomes more prevalent. But today, we are poisoning our children at such a good level. We're really experts at poisoning our children. These disease rates are going down. And yes, we do live a longer life than maybe our great ancestors who had infectious disease that wiped them out, but nowhere near as long as we did 5 and 10 years ago. The other thing I may say is that every single creature in nature lives 7 times the length of their maturity. So in fact, if you're a bird that takes 1 year to mature, you'll live 7 years. Boys and girls, we mature at about 20 years old physically. Now our brains take another 5 years. But the fact of the matter is 20 times 7 is 140. And Harvard University a number of years ago literally said we should be living to 140 if we just could take the stress away. So bingo! Get rid of the stress, get rid of the meat, get rid of the dairy food, and we're all going to be happy, healthy, and a lot sexier than we are now.
Okay, that's excellent. So I want to share with you guys today something that I found so fascinating. So the United States National Residue Program, and this is something that relates to meat, poultry, and egg products. And so what this whole program does is it tests samples from all around the country and actually around the world of imported products as it relates to what sneaky things are hiding in the food, such as hormones, such as antibiotics, such as pesticides that came through the food chain, and they're just trying to find all the hidden stuff. Now, I love this because I love finding the secrets that are hidden in our food. I think one of the first books I bought as like an adolescent was a book completely on additives in like all products. It was like the nerdiest thing I could buy at like 14 years old.
It was pretty showing you were bright.
And so what I find so fascinating about this is that, you know, here is a lot of information on simply all the crap that's in your food that you're eating with poultry, dairy, and eggs and meat. So you'll see this chart that I have up on the screen here, where you can see all of the animal classes and all of the nasty compounds you'll see on there. And
really take a look at this chart as Lindsay's showing it to you, because I want you to notice there that the higher amount of fat the animal has, like a pig, by far the higher amount of residues.
Yeah, and so this chart that's in front of you at this very moment, this one is the violations, and so these are high violations within these classes of animals, and we're going to talk about some of these interesting components we found in them. So we're going to start off with neomycin, which is an antibiotic used to reduce the risk of infection during surgery and of the bowel. So it's also used to reduce symptoms of hepatic coma. So, Brian, why would this be given? Why would we be consuming this if we were to be consuming this product? It sounds kind of serious.
It's very serious. I know many people and groups that say we won't take any medicine, but they continue to eat meat. They continue to take animal-based foods. Neomycin happens to be an antibiotic that humans are exposed to, but we're getting most of it out of eating animals. Now here's the other weird part of this. 80%, more than 80% of all antibiotics that are used on the planet Earth go into animal husbandry. Now, are these poor animals supposed to be getting antibiotics? Are you supposed to be getting antibiotics? No. Now, you know, there's a place and a time for antibiotics. If somebody has a very strong bacterial infection, not a viral infection, bacterial infection, an antibiotic may be employed. There's natural things you can do, but the fact is, when somebody's close to death, what I would say is take the antibiotic at that point with bacterial problems, but not eat it from an animal.
Yeah, just so much exposure over time that people are just taking in one after the other. So the next one we have here is Carbodox, and this is an animal drug used in particularly pigs and hogs, and the purpose is to increase that weight gain, to make them fatter, juicier for your bacon. I mean, and also there's some, they say, therapeutic purposes of it as well, such as controlling swine dysentery and bacterial swine enteritis. And so this is just, it's going to make you fat. It's going to carry over into your food that you're eating from these pigs. And I think it's pretty commonly known, but maybe not so much, that, you know, eating pigs, there's a lot of stuff that comes with eating pigs, eating bacon.
Well, you know, I mean, even religions told you not to eat pigs. I mean, thousands of years ago they had to tell you that, and you're not listening now. And how many of you eat pig rind as chips. Can you imagine what a snack this is? You actually take the skin that they didn't know what to do with, they boil the heck out of it, fry the heck out of it, and then you eat it as you would a potato chip. Can you imagine how ungodly, disease-causing, age-producing this is? It's just gross as gross can be. The other thing, we have overwhelming data that show when you take these medicines, you'll be chubbier, you'll be fatter, because it completely cross-circuits the entire body's biochemistry and immunity. It gets confused, and then the metabolism goes wacky, and before you know it, you're as big as a pig.
At Hippocrates Health Institute, we've been researching and utilizing CBD for 10 years. Over the last 3 years, our director, Clement, worked with a nutritional scientist who formulated a high-potency CBD food powder that time releases this mind-expanding, pain-reducing, and naturally fulfilling plant. It provides a complete protein, the essential fats your body and brain require, and acts like a supercharged green drink. Your life will be enhanced by Life Give Body Mind CBD. So well said, Brian. The last one we're going to hit in this category is a sulfa drug, which is also an antimicrobial, and just some possible side effects that could be included here. I mean, you could have dry eyes, acute liver inflammation characterized by yellowing of the skin and eyes, fever, hives, facial swelling, just to name a few. So I think the whole idea here is that you're taking in a lot of things you don't need to be as a result of eating these animal products. Now, one we can't forget about is penicillin. And the whole penicillin, I almost want to say epidemic, but the whole how addicted humans have gotten to using penicillin for anything that's antibiotic related, and how much our resistance has built to it. So we're going to go right into the resistance now, which is to antibiotic and antimicrobial resistance. And what they have found is that it is present in every single country. Patients with infections caused by drug-resistant bacteria are at an increased risk of worse clinical outcomes and death, and consume more healthcare resources than patients infected with non-resistant strains of the same bacteria. Now, Brian, why is this so dangerous?
Well, I'm going to tell you, what this does is completely shifts your hormones, and I'll give a story to you. About 15, 20 years ago, I had a mother and grandmother here with their young child, 5, 6-year-old child, and the little girl was bleeding. They had brought this little girl to several medical doctors thinking she may have cancer or some internal concern. The doctors ruled that out but had no answer for them. So during their stay here, of course, they had a private consultation with me, and I asked, what does this little girl eat? And the mother said she only likes chicken McNuggets. The light bulb went on immediately. We actually found out this girl had menstruation at this tender age. Now, this is one story. I can give dozens of stories like this. So when you're taking these chemicals, they appear to be estrogenic to the body. When the body perceives it as estrogen, it starts to make a little girl a woman and a little boy a man. And what it's going to do to patterns of psychology, physiology throughout life is notable. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think so much people just say, I'm eating this thing for dinner, I'm having this for a meal, and they're thinking of it in such a temporal sense of, I'm having this for a meal. But they're not thinking about how this actually plays into the long-term journey of our bodies and the bodies of our children, in terms of what is this food actually contributing into their lives? What is it actually feeding into for the long-term journey of that person's life? So really important stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about E. coli, which I think a lot of people don't realize. So many people get E. coli every single year. And one of the most common ways of getting it is a lot of people get urinary tract infections, and so that's coming from a lot of times the E. coli strain. And there are countries in many parts of the world where treatments are now ineffective in more than half of patients.
That's right.
I think that is huge. I mean, think about it. So E. coli can lead to a lot of different things, and Brian, you could probably speak on this better than I can, but for treatment to be ineffective in more than half of patients is huge.
It's huge, and in one of my books, Dairy Deception, I actually speak about when they looked at 1,300,000 eggs all over the world, different countries, and found out 90% of those eggs literally had E. coli or salmonella, or both E. coli and salmonella. Now think of what I'm saying to you. Getting small amounts that may not kill you, because ultimately it can kill you. Literally you build up a resistance to it, the same way you with in immunization sort of makes your body
interesting point.
understand what it is. This is scary stuff. And by the way, let me preface this by telling you, half those eggs they tested, about 750,000 eggs, were called organic.
Wow.
Yeah.
It makes everyone kind of second guess their happy chicken eggs from their organic farms.
Oh, no, happy. Happy. Forget it.
Not happy. So another one we have here is resistance to tuberculosis. Now, this is something that we haven't really been dealing with in this country very much recently. However, the World Health Organization estimates that in 2014, there were about 480,000 new cases of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. And a form of tuberculosis that is resistant to the two most powerful anti-tuberculosis drugs. So this just kind of, feeds in more to the fact that some of these conditions are getting out of control to a level that we really have to pay attention to, because we might get to a point where the strain has become so resistant that we don't have a way to combat it like we used to.
Well, not may, we are. There are certain diseases today that were almost non-existent that are coming back because our bodies no longer are equipped to fight them. And it's all about eating animals and drinking secretions from their bosoms. The fact of the matter is that this is immunizing you against medicines that may save your life.
Yeah.
Not to say we're big fans of medicine, but at times and place you need them.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point, Brian. And, this all kind of cycles back into the end of, antibiotics. And Brian, you actually mentioned this earlier. The scientific community has actually proven without a shadow of a doubt that the use of antibiotics causes people to gain weight, especially children, which can increase the energy intake from the diet and make them take on more weight over time by these antibiotics. So it's like you're feeding them the foods that have the antibiotics, which are making them fat, which are making them want to take in more of those foods. And it's just, it's a bad cycle from the beginning. So Brian, in terms of recommendations of what you would say to people as it relates to not being as susceptible to these antibiotic and antimicrobial strains so that they can actually protect themselves for the future in case they actually need some of these drugs?
Well, number one, you've got to get back to the most primal diet, the Hippocrates diet. This is where all the nutrition lives, in the plant, the leaf of the plant. And when you look at the power that you find in there, not only the superior nutrition, but the medicines, the phytochemicals that we've been using here for all these decades, and watching people reverse disease. And people like me, an old guy, I just don't age the way the rest of the population does, and I'm not the exception. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't get on the real primal diet has nothing to do with animals. It has to do with plants. Every serious anthropologist in the world now, serious, and there's not many, basically will tell you that we were plant eaters, not animal food eaters. And the strongest people in the world today are eating the Hippocrates type of lifestyle. The top athletes in the world are eating this way. And if you don't understand this at this point, it's because your head is in a block, a big stone block, and you're not listening because you're being surrounded by this information. The data is overwhelming, the scientific community, but old lies are hard to beat.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it any better, Brian. And the whole fact is, like, when you're eating this primal diet, when you're eating the food that we teach you to eat here at Hippocrates, you are supporting a lifestyle that, let's say, God forbid, down the road, you actually do have to take an antibiotic for something, that antibiotic is actually able to save you. So we talk about health in so many ways of how this food can save your life and help prevent different diseases and diagnoses and stuff. But we hardly ever even get into the fact that, like, if you actually do need more standard medical care, that this diet helps you, supports you in that journey that you may choose down the road, because you are no longer having this huge thing in front of you, where you can't take in anything that will actually help you.
It's absolutely true. I mean, we work with people here at all different levels, everything from athletes to people who were diagnosed and told they had 3 days to live. And we watch what happens when you accompany what their treatment protocol is with a healthy lifestyle. And doctor after doctor after doctor over the years have said to me, this is really the component that saved this person's life or made them heal from that particular disease.
Well, that's perfect, Brian. I think that we've kind of summed this up for you, and we are going to see you next time here on this episode of Lifestyle Debunked.
Till next week.